for startups, generally for Kenyan businesses. I know that yesterday you're in the streets as well, fighting for our rights to hold on to a bit more of our money. So my question for you is, in our local context, in this country, there's so much going on already. We are having conversations around tax, conversations around infrastructure, and 99 other problems, basically. And so with all of this going on, why would we be looking up to space for yet other opportunities that we're wanting to engage as a private sector? Ultimately, we look for business opportunities. So what is the business opportunity?
Thank you very much, Nekesa, and happy to be here. My name is Victor Otieno, Managing Director of IFA Consult. Our focus basically is around research and using evidence to be able to advocate for better policies for both small, medium enterprises as well as startups. I think the way I look at it in terms of space technology is we, as a country, are facing over 30% in terms of poverty rates. We have close to 100 million young graduates entering the labor market who cannot be able to get an economic opportunity. So as a country, we need to find ways in which we can be able to create economic opportunities for young people as well as eradicate poverty. Then here we have this thing called space. And the question is, how can small businesses or SMEs or even startups be able to take advantage of this type of technology? So on one option, we can say, okay, now let's move with space, let Akina Charles and the rest of the teams launch satellites to space, but then it does not address the common person's challenges. If you look at the current government's agenda is around supporting SMEs, supporting the digital economy, and we have budgets that have been allocated towards that. So on one hand is, I think a great opportunity is to be able to use what infrastructure already exists to tap into space and see how the two can be linked. I liked the few presentations that were done in terms of asking the question is, how can we be able to use this technology to address some of the real challenges or the nascent challenges that we face within the counties, within the communities. So I think this is an opportunity for this type of ecosystem to plug to what is already there in terms of the startup innovation ecosystem, small, medium enterprise clusters across the country, and see how we can be able to just bridge that gap in terms of educating them what technologies are available within space and how these types of technology, at least from a downstream perspective, can be used to either improve their businesses in terms of SMEs, maybe in terms of moving to the digital economy, or startups can be able to plug to innovate around the same and of course get some economic opportunities. That probably is the perspective that I would pick.
And obviously I would assume, Victor, also there needs to be a thriving ecosystem around them and a role for different players to play, both private and public sector. And to move on to Elena, and you already set the context of a good foundation with regards to what government agencies can do, obviously using yours as a great case study. The public sector has historically played a very crucial role in scale and sustainability of products and services. In fact, many times you say your biggest customer is the private sector, and so there's a huge role to play there. As commercialization, or rather as we explore this new era of exploration and commercialization, it feels as though as we get into this new space, perhaps government agencies also need to look at new and innovative ways that they begin to engage with the private sector.
Absolutely. I think we're seeing a shift in how government plays in these different industries. And I think in the past or historically, the government feels they have to do a lot of the work and private sector, finds their niche. I think now government becomes more of an enabler for all the different ecosystem players to take part in this industry. It's quite interesting to see the shift from government owning a lot of the infrastructure and the work being done. They have their internal engineers that they do all the work in. You now have the world at your fingertips in terms of talent and expertise. And I think it's time to be open for that. So in terms of, I guess, how government can do this, the first one is visibility of opportunities. Instead of saying, there's strategic outcomes that governments want, but how do they make that a collaborative effort? And where's the visibility for students and for entrepreneurs and businesses and corporates and people in the private sector to see where they can tap into this and be part of it? The second one is education and capacity building. So strategically, what skills do you need to make this kind of, your strategic outcomes a reality? You don't have to build them in-house. That takes years, and it takes a lot of money and a lot of time to build that. What is actually accessible now within the private sector, and how can you make that happen? If it's not there, how can you collaborate with the private sector or enable them to create that space for those kinds of, expertise and that kind of knowledge? The third one is an enabling environment actually for scaling business. So your ease of business, your regulatory frameworks, these kinds of things that these private sector players live in. I think it's very easy to say from a government perspective, we want to achieve X, but how do we enable the private sector to also achieve the outcomes that they want to? And these things come from I guess, government regulations. Also enabling international partnerships. How easy is it for your private sector to integrate into other private sectors? I know the South African space sector, for example, relies on international markets currently to survive. It's easier currently than doing local business. Why is that? And how do we change that? How do we enable more access to more international markets, and how do we build that market locally? I think government plays an enabling role there. And then fourth, and the biggest one, which has come up again and again, is the facilitation of finance. So where does the money come to build that infrastructure? And how does government help finance that, but also empower other parties to play a role in that? Where do the grants come from? Where does the investment come from? Do you make investment in these private companies attractive to the investors themselves?
Thanks, Elena. I hear you talking about all the ecosystem players understanding what their role is. And it feels to me as though there needs to be a huge element, one, of shared value. And so having a common goal that we are all working towards, it doesn't work otherwise. But then also there's an element of trust, right? Where we need to understand that my vision, my strength, as I bring it in, I expect that the other party is doing that as well. Hard, but we will get there. Now, that's fantastic, and I know that even Victor, for example, when he talks about opportunities and challenges for the private sector, is also he would also be touching on the same. He'd be talking about enabling environments, and so my question, Maria, is, again, you set a great foundation around the commercialization, but then I would want for it to resonate even more with the people in this room. What does that mean in terms of navigating sometimes, say, policies which we feel may stop us or disillusion us, when we're working towards wanting to get into a new space, wanting to get into space, into this space technology space now? How do we navigate the challenges that are bound to come along as we commercialize?
That's a very good question. I would actually divide this question into 3 sub-questions. So first, in terms of regulations, obviously it's absolutely important to keep an eye on what's being launched or what's planned to be announced by the policymakers. And not only be aware of that, but try to be as close to the policymakers as possible, addressing challenges within the market, asking for their support, introducing new technologies, introducing customer needs, and making sure that they listen to and they are aware of the needs which are available in the market. The second thing, in terms of technology, every company wants to be innovative, but at the same time, I would say it's absolutely important to understand the current expertise and the technology available to make the maximum use of it before innovating. And bringing users to the technological development is crucial because this enables you to clearly understand what they expect and how these expectations can be managed by the company. And funding opportunities.